Good morning and welcome to Coffee and the Word. And I'm sorry I missed yesterday. We've had some internet issues here and uploading was choppy, and I think I have it fixed. I hope this live is going to go off without a hitch this time. But anyway, I missed yesterday, so I'm doing today, and we'll do Blind Guy Bible Time tomorrow. So I look forward to that. I hope you're looking forward to that as well. But we're going to do the verse of the day from the YouVersion, and yesterday would have been a good one to do as well, but I want to do today's, and it comes out of First Peter chapter 4. And here's verse 10. Here's what it says. First Peter chapter 4 and verse 10. Each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful steward of God's gifts and in various in its various forms. And so one of the things that is very frustrating for me, I saw an article not too long ago that basically said church membership is way down in this country. We've decided church is not as valuable as we once thought it was. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that. I think there's been a move for quite some time to suggest that you don't need to go to church to be a godly person. And, we'll talk more about that in just a minute. There's this, I'm spiritual but not religious. There's a move to suggest that God can love me whether or not I go to church. And, there's just like in a lot of lies, there's just enough truth in it to make it palatable. But the truth is there's so many things in Scripture that points to the idea that we need a fellowship. We need people. In fact, there's tons of things that we have to do that we're called to do in fellowship that requires that kind of fellowship. And this is one of them. He's like, use your gifts to serve one another. Be good stewards. In fact, if you move up a little bit, what God intended for us to do from the very beginning of time. If you remember, one of the first things God says about mankind, he's like, it's not good for man to be alone. I will make someone to partner with. I'll make him a helpmeet. I'll make him this creature that he will, and of course they end up being married, but it's interesting to me that what God saw that man needed was companionship, and then what God does from there on out is he begins to build communities, and even when Jesus came, one of the things he says, upon this rock I will build my church, which is a congregation, which is a group of people. The intent is that we're supposed to do things together. And so one of the cool things is in verse 10, he says, each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful steward of God's grace in its various forms. And he's basically suggesting a couple of things here. Number one, that we all have gifts. And I know I started this about church attendance, but really this is more than just attending a church. Church is not supposed to be a consumeristic construct. It's not supposed to be about being entertained. It's not even supposed to be about just you being fed. It's about you being a part of a community where each does its part. In fact, 1 Corinthians chapter 12 tells us the same thing, that we should all be using our gifts, that we all have unique gifts, and those unique gifts are necessary. And if we don't each use our unique gifts, we become handicapped in our ability to do the things that need to be done. And so when Peter writes this, he's like, each one of you should use his gifts to serve. This is something, and I think this is one of the reasons the church has become less than palatable for people, is because it's become a consumer thing that really isn't that consumable. How much can you actually sit and listen to Bible studies and sermons, and how often can you hear the same worship song? I get the rub. I mean, I grew up my whole life, I didn't really like church. But church is supposed to be about a community coming together, serving with one another and serving one another. And it's a place where you develop this love with like-minded people. It's a place where you develop a network of people that you can reach out to and trust in and hope with and grow with. And so I dare suggest that if some of you are frustrated with your church life experience, you're probably somebody who's not engaged in your church life. You show up when the doors are open and you leave when the doors are closed, and you have no idea how the church operates. You have no idea what the budget is at your church. You have no idea what the church is lacking. And some of that is a leadership problem. Please don't misunderstand, but you can help a leadership problem by being good stewards of your own gifts. And you go to the leadership and you say, I'm able to do some things and I'd like to start doing them. And I hate to beat up my own church here recently, but we've been sending out emails and questionnaires about how you would like to serve, and we're getting very few responses. And I want us to understand that in order for this wheel to roll and to operate, this machine and mechanism to operate as an organism as it's intended to, every person in the church should be using whatever gifts they have in serving one another. That's vitally important to a successful fellowship. Because if not, I'm missing something you have. One of the things that I remember as a kid, this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. And we've always thought that little light is, making sure you share the gospel, which I'm sure that's part of it. But another way in which you're hiding it under a bushel is you're not serving with your gifts. You're not walking in your gifts. And so I want to encourage you that. And I know this pandemic has had a huge impact on how churches are done, but it's become even more evident how much we need one another, serving one another. And so I just want to encourage you. Here's my big encouragement. Here's Peter's big encouragement. I need you to serve with your gifts. And so real quick, I know that some of you are like, I don't really have any gifts. Like, I'm just not very good at anything. I don't know how many of you are thinking that right now. I'm just not really good at anything. First of all, that's not true. Each of you have been uniquely gifted by God for the common good. Like, each of us has unique gifts. There are people who have gifts that are the more exposing gifts, the people who are good at speaking, people who are good at singing, people who are good at music, people who are good at technology. Those may be gifts you're like, well, that guy is so talented. But what I want you to understand is you're talented too. And your talents are necessary. I would dare suggest the most important gift in the church is probably something along the lines of hospitality. Somebody who is welcoming, somebody who is loving, somebody who's concerned with other people, somebody who's a gift of mercy and grace, somebody who has the gift of giving. All of these things are things we don't really see, but when they're happening, they make a big impact on the community. People, sometimes, in fact, most of the time, the behind-the-scene people are way more important than the out front people. And because we don't do a good job, the behind-the-scenes people stop believing that what they're doing is valuable. And so I just want to encourage you, whatever church you're a part of, reach out and ask, what can I do? What can I do to serve the community? And maybe they don't have an answer, but that doesn't give you an excuse not to do. Find out what your gift is. Find out what you're passionate about. Find out what where your heart is, and then start serving in that capacity. A welcome team is maybe one of the things that you could do. You could sit and just welcome people. Whatever it is, find a way to serve your community. They need you. Find a way to serve your church. They want you. Find a way to serve your church. You'll find more fulfillment in doing that. Anyway, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. This has been another edition of Coffee and the Word. God bless.